help in trying to resolve some of the issues that have bedeviled these particular water companies. I'm also very proud, Honorable Chair, that this committee has done almost 80 of those water company reports so far, and that we are at 100% in terms of addressing the question of ownership, which was not the situation that was obtaining prior to Senator Ososi being the chair of this committee. So therefore, Honorable Chair, let me take this opportunity to thank the chair, the Senator for Vihiga, who's also my deputy party leader. These are some of the things that Kenyans have come to expect from the very high quality leadership from the Orange Democratic Movement. And we are setting the pace for other committees, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, allow me to address two things that have been raised by the committee, and they have had the chair make various references to the situation with water in Nairobi County. The first one, Honorable Chair, is the question of non-revenue water. And I know that from the discussions before that committee, Nairobi County, or the Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company, is one of those companies with the highest non-revenue water. And various reasons have been cited. Honorable Speaker, in very simple terms, non-revenue water is revenue that somehow leaves the company, but is not billed, and the county does not receive money, or the company does not receive money, for that water. And one of the issues that have been cited is dilapidated infrastructure. Truth of the matter is, here in Nairobi, the water and sewerage infrastructure that we are operating on has been stretched beyond its capacity. And as the chair said, we are still relying on the original water and sanitation infrastructure when the city was actually built by the Mzungu. Honorable Chair, one of the things that I have never understood is, if you look at our laws, there is a law that is called the Urban Areas and Cities Act. This law, under sections 5 and 6, provides for a framework of cooperation between the national government and the county government, and especially the city county of Nairobi, recognizing the unique position of Nairobi City County amongst the 47 counties. This uniqueness arises from many things, including the fact that Nairobi City County is the capital of the Republic. It hosts the diplomatic headquarters of many countries. It also is a seat of government. Many national government institutions are actually situated here in Nairobi. Honorable Speaker, under that act, the expectation was that in the realization of the uniqueness of Nairobi, the national government would support development of heavy infrastructure or critical infrastructure like the water and sanitation infrastructure. But this has never happened. If you speak to the management of the water company and the county government of Nairobi in general, Honorable Speaker, the amount of capital outlay that is required to bring the sanitation and water infrastructure up to speed, Honorable Speaker, it is something that would require over 5 years allocation under the equitable revenue share for us to be able to do that infrastructure. As we speak, Honorable Speaker, the existing sewage network, for instance, covers only 37 or 30% of the total square area of Nairobi County. And Honorable Speaker, as you know, these has also, the past few years, I've seen a lot of rapid development in terms of housing. Very many new buildings are coming up, going up to 25 floors, hosting thousands of tenants, but it has not been accompanied by the commensurate infrastructure upgrade that is required. And this is why many of our water and sanitation infrastructure is creaking. So, Honorable Speaker, I continue to call on the national government to honor its responsibilities under the Urban Areas and Cities Act to support Nairobi's development of certain critical infrastructure, including our water infrastructure, Honorable Speaker, so that we can be able to meet the needs of the people of Nairobi. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the committee has highlighted the specter of illegal connections and what the chair has called outright corruption. There are stories we hear in this city, Honorable Speaker. Very serious allegations are made against the management of Nairobi Water City Company, the people who work there, that, Honorable Speaker, even though they told us that there is this program of equitable distribution of water across the city, that there are unscrupulous people within the company who are even themselves merchants of water, people who own water bowsers, who are aware of the distribution schedule, who will make sure that, Honorable Speaker, the running joke is that some of them have mjengos going on, and they tell their contractors, just wacha nifunge Nairobi West, and then I'll come and see you at the hardware, Honorable Speaker. Knowing that you are shutting water supply to Nairobi West, then your bowsers are available for the people of Nairobi West to buy water from you. So these stories, Honorable Speaker, unfortunately for us, we rely on other institutions, and we have complained even at the Committee of Public Accounts that unfortunately for us as a House, our role ends somewhere. That once we bring up these matters before these committees, we depend on other institutions of government, including the EACC, to be able to follow up and to be able to bring some of these matters before the courts so that we can stop these malpractices. I remember, Honorable Speaker, and I don't know if Chair of this committee can recall, that when the Nairobi Water team was before his committee, there was a discussion about the discharge point for sewage from these exhausters in Nairobi. And the management there could not tell you on average or in a day what are the identities of the trucks that have delivered or have discharged this morning. They cannot tell you the number of times a vehicle specific registration number has appeared there. And it becomes very difficult for you to manage revenue if you are operating like that. So, Honorable Chair, if we do not focus on this question of illegal connections and corruption within our water companies, we are doing nothing. And by the way, I used to think that cartels, for instance, in water, are shadowy figures who you cannot point out. Honorable Speaker, the people doing illegal connections are known within our communities. It is the inefficiency of the water companies that supports the existence of these cartels. Because the people there, especially in the informal settlements, have come to realize that the suppliers down there who have made illegal connections somehow provide a more reliable service than the water company itself. So if these issues are not addressed, Honorable Speaker, then we will not be doing anything. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I want to just comment on something that the Speaker, the Chairman said, that the recommendations are arrived at by consensus. And in replying, I would also want him to advise if this consensus is just amongst the members of the committee, or if in fact the management of the water companies themselves share in some of these recommendations, because it is important that you get the buy-in of these stakeholders, especially on conflict areas such as the Kisii and Nyamira situation that you have referred to, the Bungoma and Trans Nzoia one. If there is no commitment from those stakeholders to resolve those problems, there's not going to be resolution of those problems. So therefore, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the committee. I thank them for the support that they are rendering to all these entities for them to be able to improve. At the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, what the people of our counties expect is reliable water supply. If you look at the statistics, the people who in this city have access to water 24 hours are less than 40%. The rest of us, Honorable Speaker, we have to play pata potea with our water supply. And this is a situation that is not acceptable. And we have to call out the management of these companies. We have to call out the management of our counties to ensure that this is done. Nairobians have waited for so long, Honorable Speaker, because, you know, there's a project that we were following very closely on the Northern Collector Tunnel that was supposed to add an additional 170,000 cubic meters of water to our daily supply, which would have helped because we are running a deficit of over 200,000 cubic meters of water every day. We need to be updated on the situation with the Northern Collector Tunnel and all the other water projects that the people of Nairobi have been waiting on, so that we are able to assuage the situation and as well in the other counties. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I thank you and I support the position that has been taken by the committee.
Thank you, Senator Sifuna. I was really hoping that when you were talking about the honeysuckers, and you have informed the House that they discharge their sewer in rivers, and we have that problem. Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity to make a few comments on the report of my sister committee of County Public and Investment. I think in the last session, Mr. Speaker, it was a joint committee, and I'm happy during that session, Mr. Speaker, we were not able to look at these issues, and I know they are very busy because they have to look back for almost, Mr. Speaker, from 2013, because during the public investments, we could not look at public accounts in the last session. But I'm happy in the wisdom of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, we have seen the need to have a public investment committee. And I'm happy to, this report of 2019-2020, I'm happy with the pace at which the Public Investment Committee of this House is doing its work, led by the Deputy Party Leader of ODM, my brother and friend and neighbor, Senator Otsotsi, for the good job that he's doing, Mr. Speaker. And for us who interacted with Senator Otsotsi in the last session, he was a fiery legislator who almost angamised one of our principles. But I'm happy nowadays he's more calm. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Amatsi Water Service Company Limited in Vihiga, Bomet Water Company Limited in Bomet County, Gusii Water and Sanitation Company Limited in Kisii, Nyamira counties, and this is where we have problems even in waterworks, Mr. Speaker. Remember, for example, Nandi, there are many shared, Mr. Speaker. Even in Nandi, we have a Lored Water and Sanitation Company that covers both Wazingishu County and Nandi, and part of Lesos in Nandi's constituency. We have Kisumu Water and Sanitation Company in Kisumu County, Kwale Sewerage and Sanitation, Nyeri and Sanitation Company, Mr. Speaker, where Wamunyoro village is. Mr. Speaker, on many aspects, I want to be very clear, Mr. Speaker, on many issues. I agree that most of our companies are on the red, water companies, even Kapsabet Water and Sanitation Company, Mr. Speaker. For example, Water and Sanitation Company is under in Nandi County, where we still depend on generators and electricity to pump water into Kapsabet town, Mr. Speaker, and its environs. We had expected that the government would expedite the construction of a Keben Dam, Mr. Speaker, which was upscaled to 24 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. I know there are a number of dams across the country, like Tuaga Dam. There is also Karmenu Dam, Mr. Speaker. There is Posta Dam in Bomet. There is also Itare Dam in Nakuru. Chemasusu Dam was complete. We had one, the Aror and Kimwarer dams in Elgeyo Marakwet County, Mr. Speaker. We have two rivers in Wazingishu. Mr. Speaker, we have the one of Sondu Dam that was supposed to cost 40 billion, that is between Kericho, Nandi, and Kisumu counties, among other dams across the country, Mr. Speaker. So it is very important that water is life. Water should be accessible, Mr. Speaker. If a society where it will reach a point that water is more expensive than soda or any other beverage, Mr. Speaker, as a society, we have collapsed. I know in northern part of the country, we still have challenges of access to water. And we remember we were being told that there is aquifer waters, especially in Turkana and that northern Pel, where we were being told up to 70 years access to underground water, to especially regions your county like Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, among other counties in the northern frontier, Mr. Speaker, is very critical. As a society, Mr. Speaker, when you don't have water for domestic use to drink, Mr. Speaker, many years ago, there were clamor for changes in reforms of water sector, Mr. Speaker. Even, Mr. Speaker, as we grapple with the challenges of access to water in eastern and northeastern part of this country, where ours is rain-fed, Mr. Speaker. We are lucky from where I come in Nandi. The reason why we don't have so much challenge of access to water for domestic use, drinking, and other usage is because of rain-fed kind of access to water, Mr. Speaker. In fact, even counties that border Indian Ocean, Mr. Speaker. There was even a proposal of Mzima Springs that is not sufficient. We need desalination of, because the auction water has salt, Mr. Speaker. Those are some of the access to create water in these areas, Mr. Speaker. But yeah, can you believe living in Nairobi is like living in some eastern or northern eastern of this country? Because, Mr. Speaker, water only appears in Nairobi like medicine, Mr. Speaker. No one is sure. That is why the thriving business of water bowsers in this city, Mr. Speaker, where at the moment there are many water bowsers. Even in yours, when you drive in the Nairobi roads, Nairobi streets, Mr. Speaker, you will always spot water bowsers. It's a booming business. Because, Mr. Speaker, I don't know it was by default or by design, where the supply of water has collapsed in this city, Mr. Speaker. We were being told the northern corridor of Murang'a should provide sufficient water, sufficient water to Nairobi City, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you many Kenyans, 4 million plus residents of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, there is no difference with people who are living in Wajir or Turkana in terms of access to water. You have to buy water, which is expensive in terms of household expenditure, Mr. Speaker. You know, many families across the country, Mr. Speaker, spend 60% of their income on food. Food be inclusive of water, Mr. Speaker. I think that is the challenge as a country we must grapple with. And I think as a country, our people should be able to access clean and safe water wherever they are. 50 million plus, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we want to ask counties, because most of these water and sanitation companies are domiciled within counties, Mr. Speaker. We want to ask, Mr. Speaker, we notice, and I want to confirm that we don't have smart meters, where you still have clerical waterworks, the meter readers. I'm told the first president of this republic was a meter reader in this city, Mr. Speaker. And I know Senator Okiya Omtata might be aware, because he's good at litigation, that he was the meter reader, Mr. Speaker. So you get people, clerical, still go and read, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know, you know, you can be a meter reader and become a multi-billion in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, when you go and they still read it physically using motorbikes, using access, and then write, Mr. Speaker, we need to introduce smart meters so that we protect and ensure accuracy in terms of declaring in the financial statement. And I think water sanitation companies should introduce, Mr. Speaker, smart meters so that you don't need to be there. Even Kenya Power and Lighting and Company, although that's another, it was one of the scandals that did affect this country was provision of smart meters in Kenya Power and Lighting Company. We need smart readers, smart meters, so that our people, we can know. So, Speaker, you know, I was shocked that these meter readers come and read and then go and approximate how much you will pay. But if you had smart reader, it gives us the precision of a military marksman what you should pay in terms of access, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, even it will also assist non-revenue water, Mr. Speaker. Because the fact that that water is lost, it means that revenue is lost, Mr. Speaker, in terms of non-revenue water. And therefore, we need to have even, Mr. Speaker, a technological era. Kenya is boasting of being technological savvy, Mr. Speaker. For example, we need to ensure that we have GIS, Geographical Information System, Mr. Speaker. When you have Geographical Information System, Mr. Speaker, GIS, it can tell us where is the pipe leakages, where there is pipe burst, the way Kenya Pipeline Corporation are using in terms of GIS. Say that if you are taking fuel from here to Eldoret to Kisumu, these pipes that KPC all the way from terminal, Kipevu terminal or wherever in Mombasa, they should be having a GIS to detect water leakages so that you prevent non-revenue water and loss of revenue because water is spilled or the pipes are burst, Mr. Speaker. So when we have GIS, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the committee led by my brother has noted this, it will assist in terms of ensuring that when you have geographical information system, it can detect the way we detect fuel when there is leakage. They can become precise, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that we can be able to detect any leakages of water or burst pipes in the system or infrastructure within. And I hope other companies, like whether it is coast companies, whether it is in Rift, whether it is in Nairobi here, it should be able to use GIS, Mr. Speaker. It is something that is easy. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, we should not be told counties or when they're upgrading to GIS that it is taking 104 billion. the way the ICT infrastructure upgrade was done in terms of the upgrade of NHIF and SHA, Mr. Speaker, because you know the funny part, and Senator Eddy will tell you, the funny part with an infrastructure of app, you need upgrade, you don't own it. It becomes absolute. So when you pay a lot, like the way you are paid 104 billion for infrastructure in terms of NHIF, then there is a big problem, because that's software, you'll keep it improving, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of what, I am happy that there is a report. I have seen there is a version, Mr. Speaker, of a mediated version of Water Act. This, Mr. Speaker, should resolve the issue of Water Trust Fund. You remember the amendment that was brought, what we call the Water Amendment Bill of 2023. The intention was to reverse, Mr. Speaker, contravening fourth schedule, where water and management and water work, water sanitation and access to water was left to counties, Mr. Speaker. You remember there's still animals called waterworks. Like now we have coastal waterworks. We have Lake Victoria North, where Nandi, Kakamega and Vihiga and other counties are falling within. We have Lake Victoria South waterworks. We have Central Rift waterworks. We have Tana waterworks. We have Tana Adi waterworks, Mr. Speaker. These waterworks undermine devolution. In fact, these waterworks, Mr. Speaker, should be completely taken off. For example, in Lake Victoria North waterworks, where Nandi is, the headquarters in Kakamega, but when you go there, it's only, they have hired only one tribe, and yet it covers my county, Nandi, it covers Vihiga, it covers Kakamega, Mr. Speaker. I think Ngishu was removed, it is now in Central Rift. We are suffering. Most of the development in Lake Victoria North, in terms of even drilling water in schools and hospitals, Mr. Speaker, and other community center, they are only drilled in Kakamega and Vihiga and other areas, but Nandi is left out, Mr. Speaker, because of perception that this region, Mr. Speaker, and it undermines Article 10 or principles of good governance and national values, Mr. Speaker. So when you look at Lake Victoria North, Nandi, when you look at the projects that come to Nandi through that waterworks as opposed to other regions, Mr. Speaker, it is very unfair. And I think it is high time we disband and ensure coastal waterworks, North Rift waterworks, Tana, Adi waterworks, any other waterworks in the country should be disbanded, because they let the counties and the county governments run those waterworks under the water and sanitation companies. And I hope in the next report, the PIC committee must tell us that we need to bring down all waterworks, because that is where the bastion of corruption is. Most of the dams that I mentioned, like Tuage, Karmenu, Posta, Itare, Keben, and other dams, Mr. Speaker, including Sondu, and including North Rift, and even Aurora and Kimwarer, are run by specific waterworks, Mr. Speaker. These same waterworks are becoming bastions of corruption and inefficiency and ineptitude, Mr. Speaker, at running, Mr. Speaker. Number 3, most of the boards that run these water companies in counties and sanitation companies is becoming a big challenge. For example, even in Kapsabet, where I come from, Mr. Speaker, we don't have a functional sewerage and sanitation, Mr. Speaker. It was done by the Mzungu that is near Kiropket, behind Kapsabet town, Mr. Speaker. That even environment impact assessment has not been done by NEMA. In terms, Mr. Speaker, when you go, we are trying to do one in Nandi Hills town that has been given to a contractor near Kosoi, next to Nandi Hills town, Mr. Speaker. The water and sanitation, in terms of sewerage and sanitation, should be efficient. Most of the sewerage and sanitation, Mr. Speaker, can you believe, most of them were constructed by Muzungu. I think Senator Mungatana said something that as Africans we need to be careful. We believe that Muzungu money will change us. It will not change. If we want to remove the present neocolonialism of running, Mr. Speaker, this nation, Mr. Speaker, we need to agree, Mr. Speaker, and in terms of, we need to improve that infrastructure. I am happy that as we even do affordable housing, Mr. Speaker, we should also work with ensuring that we have a proper sewerage and sanitation for the affordable housing program, so that we have a complete circuit. So that when you live in a house, you are sure of access to water, you have access to sewerage and sanitation, because, Mr. Speaker, most of the sewerage and sanitation areas are next to public places, and public where people live, Mr. Speaker, and I think it is important that we do that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the regeneration of water sources, I have seen Nairobi regeneration program, where the government is trying to hire most of the young people, Mr. Speaker, and ensuring that they have access. Mr. Speaker, number 5, of course, the issue of water service provider in terms of bulk water program, Mr. Speaker, purchase agreement, we must agree. Water should be accessible, Mr. Speaker. There is a song in reggae that a society becomes dysfunctional when there is nothing that is of development, Mr. Speaker. There is song that when you look outside the window, do you see anything to smile about, Mr. Speaker? When you see there are more prisons, and I think it is Lucky Dube, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, he was felled by assassin. Mr. Speaker, you remember the song "No One Can Stop Reggae"? And last time we could not say that because people of Azimio like Senator Manzo was using it. No one can stop reggae. You remember, Mr. Speaker, I think in 1987, Peter Tosh was felled by the assassin, and Lucky Dube, Mr. Speaker, went to sing about no one can stop reggae, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, last month, Mr. Speaker, we are remembering Peter Tosh because he's one of the biggest vibrant in terms of reggae genre, Mr. Speaker. I know, Mr. Speaker, people are listening, like Senator Eddie are listening to Trio Mio, like Nimekuma, Kufinish Kumalo, Mr. Speaker. And I'm told there is a new one called Iyani, Mr. Speaker, where there is new mastingos, tutakufa kifo ya mende, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what we need as a country, even as we do regeneration of rivers within, Mr. Speaker, is important. We want to ask, Mr. Speaker, even in provision of bulk water agreement. And I want to see, Mr. Speaker, the mediation report, and I want to thank your office on the water mediation report. We must agree that let us stop undermining and reversing issues that, and Mr. Speaker, all of us who are seated here, you know, one of our senators went to become the deputy president, Mr. Speaker. Many people will become governors. My brothers and sisters are senators. If we do not protect devolution, you will go back to become a governor in Makueni when my brother has finished 10 years. Don't interfere with him in 2027. When he has finished 10 years, Senator Maanzo, you don't want to go and run a county government. That is a shell, Mr. Speaker. Senator Otsotsi, I know your governor is going for the last term. I know you don't see eye to eye, but you don't want to go and inherit a county government that is dysfunctional. Mr. Speaker, as we talk, the counties are yet to receive their disbursement, contravening Article 219, Mr. Speaker. Even in Garissa, Mr. Speaker, your governor is serving the second term. But your ambitions looks beyond the governor level, Mr. Speaker. But the point I'm trying to make, let us not be part of the people who will legislate ourselves out of business. So that we can, I remember Senator Ojila Yako, when he was the senator here before my brother, Senator Eddie, Mr. Speaker, and you know he was the only young man in Nyanza who campaigned with an helicopter. So it looks he is a man of means, Mr. Speaker. We used to tell the people like Senator Ojila Yako, the current governor, that we need to protect devolution. So that when you go back to become the governor, Mr. Speaker, you don't suffer. Mr. Speaker, let us be careful. Even on this report of water mediation version, I want to ask colleagues to be very careful. Senator Otsosi and your committee, you need to assist us. I have seen Senator Kisang, part of the PIC members. I have seen Senator Eddie, who is a member of PIC, Mr. Speaker. Let us ensure counties function into the fruition, Mr. Speaker. Even the issue of running of the companies. I saw, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, you saw Northern Corridor that is providing water to Nairobi. They need to be compensated. Even in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we are giving water to Kakamega, but in Tuia Bay, there is no water. In Kapkangani, water is no water, yet we give our water to Kakamega. You go to Chebara, where my brother, Senator Kisang, comes from. Water is taken to Eldoret. The people of Chebara are not receiving access to clean and safe water. Yet they are protecting the source of water that comes to Eldoret. We are protecting the water that goes to Kakamega. Muranga is protecting water that comes, Mr. Speaker. I know even in Garissa, it's only a kilometer or so within Garissa town, but there is no clean and access water, Mr. Speaker. Yet the Tana River is just passing outside the city of Garissa. But there is no clean and access water, Mr. Speaker. We must speak as a Senate that to ensure devolution works, access to water, bursary, adequate medical supply, passable feeder roads, that is how devolution will work with this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I want to submit, Mr. Speaker, and support the motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Faki Mwinihaji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika pia kunipa fursa hii kuchangia ripoti ya kamati ya uwekezaji wa umma katika uchunguzi wao wa mashirika ya maji katika kaunti zetu. Shirika la maji la Amasi Water Company, Bomet Water Company, Gusii, Kisumu, Kwale, Nyeri na Wajir. Mheshimiwa Spika, maji ni uhai, na inasikitisha kuwa ripoti hii imeweza kuweka wazi kwamba kaunti zetu nyingi zina shida ya maji. Zina shida ya maji. Mashirika ambayo yamewezeshwa kusimamia maji haya, Mheshimiwa Spika, hawajui kile wanachofanya. Kaunti zetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, haziwekezi katika mambo ya maji. Wao wanaona kwamba kuna kampuni wanataka kampuni zile zilete faida kila mwaka, lakini hakuna uwekezaji wowote ambao unafanyika katika zile kampuni za maji. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata ukiangalia bajeti za kaunti nyingi utapata kwamba kwa mambo ya maji ni zero. Mheshimiwa Spika, kabla ya kuendelea, ningependa kusahihisha Senator Ososi aliposema kwamba ile sewage yote ya Mombasa inaingia katika bahari ya Hindi pale Kipevu. Mheshimiwa Spika, sewage ya Kipevu ni ya sehemu ya Changamwe peke yake, si ya Mombasa nzima. Sehemu zingine hakuna sewage, watu wanatumia yale mashimo ya kawaida. Kwa hivyo sewage ambayo tulikwenda tukafuatilia mwezi wa 5 nafikiri na Senator Ososi pamoja na kamati yake, ni ya Kipevu. Mheshimiwa Spika, na jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba mpaka leo hakuja kuwa na maendeleo yote pale Kipevu. Vile ilivyokuwa tulivyokwenda, walisema kwamba pesa zitakuwa released na World Bank anytime tuweze kumaliza ile ukarabati uliokuwa unafanyika. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba kufikia leo hakuna kazi yoyote ambayo imeendelea pale, na maji bado ya sewage yanaingia kwenye bahari. Mheshimiwa Spika, bandari ya Mombasa ni bandari ya kimataifa. Hatuwezi kuruhusu sewage iwe inaingia katika bandari yetu wakati kuna meli pale zinakuja, kuna mizigo, kuna vyakula vinaletwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, katika bandari ile. Hii marekebisho, Mheshimiwa Spika, ilikuwa ni mradi ambao umefadhiliwa na World Bank, na tatizo lilikuwa ni kwamba World Bank hawakuweza kuapprove invoice fulani ili waweze kurelease money, waachilie fedha za kuweza kutekeleza na kumaliza mradi huo. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jambo ambalo ningeomba kamati kama itapata fursa irudi tena waweze kuliangalia kwa makini, kwa sababu ni aibu kwamba kaunti yetu ya Mombasa inamwaga sewage katika bandari ya Hindi, ambao bandari hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, bandari ya Mombasa ambao bandari hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni ya kimataifa. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kuangazia mambo ambayo yako katika ripoti hii ni kuwa fedha nyingi zinapotea, maji yanapotea bila ya kuuzwa kwa wananchi ama kwa wale ambao wanahitaji kununua maji yale. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa Kiingereza wanaita non revenue water. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia miundo msingi ya kampuni ya sehemu nyingi za maji, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni pipe ambazo zilijengwa nyingine kabla ya uhuru 1963. Mheshimiwa Spika, sasa karibu Kenya imefika miaka 60, pipe ni zile zile. Mheshimiwa Spika, zimejaa kutu ndani. Mheshimiwa Spika, maji yanayowekwa katika pipe zile, Mheshimiwa Spika, hatuna uhakika wa usafi wake. Wengi wetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, siku hizi hakuna anayekunywa maji ya mfereji. Wengi tunakunywa maji ya chupa. Hata hapa katika bunge, Mheshimiwa Spika, hakuna anayekunywa maji ya mfereji, kwa sababu hatuna uhakika kwamba je, maji yale ni safi ama sio safi. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, fedha nyingi ama hasara kubwa inapatikana na kampuni hizo, kwa sababu ile miundo msingi ambayo inapeleka maji kwengine, pipe zinaweza kupasuka kwa muda wa mwezi, hakuna anayejua, na maji yanamwagika kiholela katika sehemu hizo. Mheshimiwa Spika, kule Mombasa hivi majuzi walianzisha zile wanaita smart meters. Lakini smart meters zile, Mheshimiwa Spika, haziwezi kupima maji ambayo hakuna. ikiwa wewe huna maji yanayoingia katika tanki yako ama yanaingia nyumbani kwako, hata ukiwekewa smart meter itakuwa hujatibu lile tatizo ambalo liko. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, uwekezaji katika mambo ya maji, Mheshimiwa Spika, mara nyingi huwa tunafanya zile umuhimu wa mambo kinyume nyume, yani our priorities are upside down. Tulikimbilia kuweka smart meter, lakini maji katika mfereji hakuna. Kwa hivyo hata kama una smart meter, Mheshimiwa Spika, huwezi kuhesabu kile ambacho hakuna. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia masuala ya uwekezaji katika kampuni hizi, utapata kwamba ni ule mtaji ambao uliwekwa na serikali wakati wa nyuma ndio unaendelea kutumika katika kampuni zile. Kampuni nyingi zinapeleka hasara kwa sababu japokuwa iko haja kubwa ya maji, kila mwananchi anataka kutumia maji, Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini maji yale, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuyatoa katika sehemu zile ambazo yanapatikana mpaka kuyafikisha katika majumba ya watumizi imekuwa ni shida. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa mfano kama Mombasa, maji yake mengi yanatoka Mzima Springs, lakini Mzima Springs ile kutoka ijengwe 1940s mpaka leo hatujaongeza hata nusu pipe. Sisi yetu ni kukarabati pipe na kuomba pesa za kufanya utafiti wa kuwezesha vipi tutaweza kujenga pipe nyingine. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukienda leo pale Mzima, Mheshimiwa Spika, utasikitika kwamba wale walioweka Mzima Springs waliweka Mzima 1 na Mzima 2 na Mzima 3, lakini leo miaka 60 baada ya miaka 60 ya uhuru, zaidi ya miaka 60, tuna Mzima 1 peke yake ambayo ndio inapeleka maji Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu nyingine ya maji ya Mombasa ni yale maji yanayotoka katika Mwache, na sasa Mwache Dam inajengwa tena ili iweze kusaidia watu wa Mombasa kuweza kupata maji rahisi. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, bado kuna mizozo baina ya kaunti zetu, japokuwa maji zile sehemu za maji ni sehemu za kitaifa, lakini bado kaunti zetu zina maji. Kwa mfano, hapo nyuma kulikuwa na mzozo baina ya Kwale County na Mombasa County kuhusiana na zile mradi wa maji wa Mwache. Watu wa kaunti wa Kwale walikuwa wasema maji ya Mwache yatumike Mwache peke yake, na hali yale maji ambayo yatapatikana pale katika Mwache Dam yatakuwa yanaweza kutumika Mombasa na kufaidisha pia watu wa Kwale. Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu nyingine ambayo inaleta maji katika kaunti ya Mombasa ni Marere ambao pia iko Kwale. Hivi majuzi, Mheshimiwa Spika, wale watu wengi wanaokaa sehemu za Changamwe constituency, Jomvu constituency katika kaunti ya Mombasa walikosa maji kwa sababu maji yote ambayo yalikuwa yanatakana kuja Mombasa yalikuwa yamepelekwa Kwale mjini ili kusaidia maandalizi ya Mashujaa Day ambayo ilifanyika juzi. Mheshimiwa Spika, hayo ni masikitiko makubwa kwamba mpaka sasa tunaweza kufungia maji karibu watu 1,000,000 maji yaweze kupelekwa sehemu moja kwa sherehe ya siku moja. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia ni kuwa maji ni uhai. Mheshimiwa Spika, maji ni uhai na hakuna uwekezaji wa kibinafsi katika masuala ya maji. Tukiangalia kaunti zetu nyingi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kama ni Watabuza wana 1 ama 2. Ukiangalia Mombasa nyingi labda ziko 3 ama 4, kwa sababu moja iko Likoni, moja iko Changamwe, moja iko Kisauni na moja iko Jomvu. Hii Mheshimiwa Spika, kama ingekuwa kaunti zetu zinaekeza katika masuala ya maji, ingekuwa wananchi wanapata maji ya rahisi, maji ambayo yana uhakika kwa sababu ni masafi, na vile vile pia zile kampuni za maji zitaweza kupata fedha za kukimu mahitaji yao. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia kila mwaka balance sheet ama hisabu za fedha za kampuni hizi, wanaendelea kupata hasara na kupata hasara na kupata hasara. Hivyo basi inabidi wananchi warudi tena kuingia mifukoni mwao ili kufadhili kampuni hizi, kwa sababu kampuni zenyewe hazina njia ya kuweza kupata fedha za kuwawezesha kukua. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo jingine pia ni kutegemea zaidi misaada ya mashirika ya kimataifa kuhusiana na masuala ya maji. japokuwa ni wafadhili wetu na wanatusaidia, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, imefika wakati sasa lazima sisi pia wenyewe tujisimamie. Haiwezekani kuwa serikali inaweza kutoa kwa mfano maji wanaopata watu wa Mombasa yanatoka kwa Coast Water Services Board ambayo wanauzia shirika la Mombasa Water, na wao wanapewa muda wa kulipa kama ni siku 90 ama ni siku 100. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo inaitwa credit window ambayo inatumika. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia haisaidii kwa sababu utapata pia kwamba hufikia wakati maji yakafungwa, watu wakapigizana kelele, wakakimbizana, ndio maji yafunguliwe, wananchi waweze kupata maji. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni lazima kamati mbali na kuleta ripoti hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, iangalie kwa ndani zaidi ni vipi ambavyo tutaweza kuzitoa hizi kampuni zijinasue na lindi hili la ukiritimba ambao unasababisha wananchi wakose maji na vile vile pia kampuni zisikue. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kumalizia pia haya mashirika ya kiserikali ambayo yako katika hizi sehemu zetu, kwa mfano Coast Water Services Board, kule kwingine iko Tana Athi, kule kwingine sio iko Lake Basin. Mheshimiwa Spika, kaunti zetu pia atakana zipawe hisa katika mashirika haya. Isiwe ni shirika la serikali kuu wana supply maji. Ukiangalia kama wale wakurugenzi ama madirekta wale wanachaguliwa watu ambao hawana uzoefu katika maeneo yale. Hivyo basi inakuwa ni vigumu kuweza kuleta mawazo ama kuleta fikra ambazo zitaweza kusaidia kurekebisha zile kampuni zilizoko vile. Kwa mfano Mheshimiwa Spika, shirika la Coast Water Services Board, serikali inaweza kuwa na share moja, Kwale ina share moja, Mombasa, Kilifi, Tana River na Lamu, kila moja ipewe share moja, ili wao pia wawe wana uwezo wa kueleza ama kusikiliza masuala yao katika mashirika hayo. Kwa hiyo mengi, Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono ripoti hii na naipongeza kamati hii kwa kazi nzuri inayofanya ikiongozwa na kiongozi wetu Ososi ambaye pia ni naibu kinara wa chama chetu cha ODM. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Wahome wa Matinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support the report by just chaired by by Senator Ososi. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of water litigation, the issue of water service provider has been longly handled for a very long time. Mr. Speaker, sir, indeed, senators are opposed and are determined to protect devolution. That being the case, we know that this is a function that's devolved and that must be undertaken by the counties. However, Mr. Speaker, it must never be lost to us that we have aspects of water, specifically in some counties, that cannot be handled by the county government alone, but must be a concerted effort by regional bodies. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am one of those who support water development agencies because I think it's the high time that we change our approach in water reticulation. The issue of non-revenue water has been discussed and addressed by various speakers, senators in this House. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, the amount of investment that's required to put intelligent water systems, including the lines and the smart meters, including the reservoirs and dams, cannot be achieved by a single county. We are also it's also not lost to us, Mr. Speaker, that different counties are endowed differently. Some of these natural resources, where we have rivers, there are counties that do not enjoy those natural resources. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that we look at the water issue as a close-cutting multi-county issues and can therefore only be invested into by a government, both local and both county and the national government, by making water accessible to almost everybody in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at the counties, and I'm happy to say that Nyeri County is one of the counties that has water, perhaps little water challenges. However, that is only limited to some sub-counties in Nyeri. When you go to Kieni, that is Kieni West and Kieni East, we have a proposed dams, Karimeno Dam that was proposed way in the 60s, Narumoro Dam that was proposed at around the same time, but garnering the resources and the budget required to come up with those dams, Mr. Speaker, has remained a challenge. But that can be achieved, Mr. Speaker, if we have now the new approach of public-private partnership, where we make water a tradable commodity and ensure that the private equity flows into the business. Mr. Speaker, sir, non-revenue water, some of the companies having as much as 70% cannot not left unchallenged, because if we are able to address the issue of non-revenue water, then we would be generating enough resources even to address the issue of the equity that's privately acquired. Mr. Speaker, sir, this can only be possible if we also have a paradigm shift in the way we think. In other countries, Mr. Speaker, we know that pension funds are invested to develop the infrastructure. We know that pension funds are used to ensure that water, both clean water and sewage water, is addressed. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we address the issue of clean water, as we address the issue of potable water, we must at the same time look at what we do with the sewage water. Mr. Speaker, in many counties, Nyeri County included, most of the areas do not have a functional sewage system. That means that most of the water that is used finds its way back into the rivers again. This, Mr. Speaker, we know it is against the SDG goals of which Kenya is a signatory. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we must address the issue of ability to raise equity. We must address the issues of ability to attract investors into the water sector. And some of the water bodies, some of the water service providers, Mr. Speaker, they are too small to achieve economies of scale. Sitting in the water committee, Mr. Speaker, we had a recommendation that we must look at what the size of our water company is for it to be able to achieve economies of scale. As much as we talk about the issues of governance, Mr. Speaker, it is also imperative that we also look at how big it is. We know for you to be able to achieve a certain magnitude of investment, you must also have a certain number of consumers. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as much as we talk about this being a devolved function, it is also important we try to look at a new approach of having regional bodies that where counties can merge and have a water service provider that can be able to achieve economies of scale. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, it is also important to look at the way the boards of management in water bodies are formed. Most of these, Mr. Speaker, are people who are appointed politically because they are politically correct. We know that most water development agencies, most water service providers, they've become den of corruption because people who are elected as chairs, they go there to try and regain what they lost in politics. Mr. Speaker, moving forward, we must look at the issue of governance. We must look at the issue of accountability. We must look at the issue of transparency. But as we look at that, we must also look at the issue of being able to generate private equity to invest in the infrastructure so that we can reduce the non-revenue water, but at the same time also employing smart meters so that we know that the bulk water that has been generated can be dispatched and it is also consumed. That must happen for the clean water as well as also sewage water. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know that one of the biggest challenges, especially in the county of Nairobi, is having sewage flowing into the river. Mr. Speaker, sir, that can only be addressed if we account for every drop entering into the household and trying to address the same, but that it must also be treated so that what we discharge back into the rivers does not pollute our environment. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of water in some counties has become quite a disadvantage because of their geographical location. But we know, Mr. Speaker, sir, by embracing the light technology, by embracing water harvesting technology, and as also water usage services, we can be able to ensure that most of the water that we take into our houses is intelligently used. I do remember, Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the motions that I tabled when I came to this house was application of intelligent water usage in buildings. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we do with the movement sensors that charts the light on and off depending on whether the room is occupied, we can also have taps, we can also have water reticulation system that is intelligent so that you do not have somebody using one bucket of water to brush their teeth where they can also use just a quarter of an acre grass. Mr. Speaker, sir, this can only be achieved if we come up with the right legal framework, if we have a holistic approach that does not look at water as an isolated county issue, but rather as a national approach whereby we would have the law. And that is why I am one of those who support the bill that addresses the issue of bulk water. Why, Mr. Speaker, sir? We know in most countries, in Western countries, water, because it's a tradable commodity, it is able to attract investors, and therefore, even the management of the reticulation itself, because this is an asset that must be able to amortize itself, it is managed in a more prudent way. This can also be achieved, Mr. Speaker, if we take the same approach. The Northern Collector Tunnel has been named here several, Mr. Speaker. We know if we had put that private equity into that, by now, we could have realized the project. By now, we would be selling the commodity. And at the end of the day, the goal of having cheap, clean, and affordable water will be achieved. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I would want to commend Nyeri County because we've been performing very well. It is one of the counties where we have the least non-revenue water. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, it is also not lost to me that we still do not have reticulation infrastructure that reaches all the household. At about 70%, Mr. Speaker, sir, we still have another 30% to go, and this can be achieved if one will renew our infrastructure. And to do that, I think it's the high time that we come up with a legislative framework that will allow the water bodies to be able to access private equity from the banks by making water a tradable commodity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to take this opportunity to thank the committee for having come up with this report, and I think for the senators, it is a challenge that, yes, we must look at the water service providers. We must put a keen eye on that because that is one of the low-hanging fruits, something that we can be able to realize quick gains, and by so doing also help our legislators, our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Daniel Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important report. Mr. Speaker, although Makueni County is not named here, and this was up to 2019 to 2020, I'm sure the next report, Mr. Speaker, will include Makueni County. But most important, Makueni County, Kitui County, and Machakos counties are served by River Athi, among other rivers, whereby River Athi goes through Nairobi. One of the worst things which has happened to this river is that raw sewage, and especially by the honeysuckers, is released, fresh to this river. There has been an effort to clean up River Athi in Nairobi. I've seen the president launching cleanup projects, but as soon as he leaves, the people who are supposed to clean the river, they also leave with him. And therefore, it becomes like a PR exercise, and the water downstream continues to be dirty. With the sewerage systems in Nairobi, last week, and even the last 2 weeks, I've been releasing raw sewage water to River Athi, and it is green through Machakos, Kitui, and Makueni. And most unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, a lot of Kenyans use this water. It is used by many water companies in Makueni. And therefore, we must come up with a system to make sure that there is clean, safe water be consumed by the people in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, there is water storage, and the water is devolved under Schedule 4 of the Constitution. But unfortunately, the national government is still holding 90% of all the water systems. The counties have not received their monies in the last 4 months, and it must be very frustrating for a governor to sit in the county. You want to deliver water to the people, and you have no money to do this. Mr. Speaker, there are boreholes, most of them mismanaged through these companies, most of the money collected and stolen by individuals. In Makueni, out of the water companies from the last report, only the Kibwezi one, which is somewhere on Mombasa Road near Kibwezi town, seems to have performed better. The rest, you could not account for the monies. You could not account for so many things, and yet a lot of money has been put into these water companies. So what do we need to do, Mr. Speaker? The country needs water. I started hearing it from the Moi era in 1986, when I was in primary school, that every home is going to have clean water. Up to today, water is still far away from most homesteads in Kenya. Piped water is still not available to every homestead in Kenya. And yet, Mr. Speaker, is a very cheap way. It's the easiest thing to do if the government seriously invested in water first. You rather even stop all the other projects. Deal with water first. Get water to the people. And then next, do the roads to the people. Probably by doing that way, then it will become much better. You will improve in irrigation, you will improve in agriculture, you will have enough food for the people, and then do the rest so that the same can be transported to marketplaces. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, although there are good policies, they have not been implemented. The people of Kenya have waited patiently for clean water into their homesteads. It has not happened, and it does not seem to be in sight soon. Thwaka Dam, which has been talked about by quite a number of contributors here, is 94% done, but now stalled for the last 2 years. I am pushing the government. I was there recently. It is very expensive to delay a water project because the contractors are on site and they are charging the country. And it is not the only one. There were quite a number of them, the Mwache Dam, the Northern Collector, and all of them, Mr. Speaker, seem to have stalled. So when will we give Kenyans water in their homesteads? All these dams, the Thwaka Dam was supposed to give water to Kitui, Machakos, and Makueni, even water for irrigation. When will this happen? And this is fertile land where farmers can grow a lot of food and can become the food basket of Kenya, and then can even sell abroad, because agriculture and agribusiness are one of the biggest businesses Kenyans can invest in, and every household has a meal every day and has some extra money to send children to school. Mr. Speaker, this matter of water must be taken very seriously by this House and by the government. We must have a proper law. We must actuate and make actual the delivery of water services to the people. We must make sure that the pending projects are completed. I am wondering why the Treasury is frustrating the Ministry of Water so much, why the Treasury is frustrating the counties so much. Why can't monies going to the counties be given priority so that the governors can prioritize on water? When you look at the Notresh water, which the Center for Narok was talking about, it comes from somewhere Mount Kilimanjaro. For many years, it went to water flowers of individuals. And then the moment it was supplied to the communities around Kajiado and Makueni, then it became another big problem. And corruption, serious corruption, have riddled these water companies. There are as many corrupt officials as you can get. There is no capacity even to try them. ESCC does not seem to have a capacity to deal with this. And even the police does not seem to have capacity to deal with the corruption in water services company. It is a high time Kenyans became responsible where they work, where they deal with water, so that there's no stealing. And the money is collected. I want to finish on this. The money is collected. If you can have a system, like an M-Pesa system, pay bill system, then all these monies will be collected into one place and the account can be seen and can be accounted for, and the counties can make sure it is accountable. We need to invest in that so that we have enough monies to continue investing in water. And I really want to urge that let Treasury release monies related to Thwake, release monies to the counties, and let's give people clean water in the country so that we can have a healthy nation, and we can use it to do agriculture, and we can use it to grow the nation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to also join the other members to support the report. Honorable Speaker, I think the report, I want to commend the committee first for the excellent work they have done, because visiting 80 water companies is not an easy thing for knowing the resources that is available to this country, this Senate. Honorable Speaker, water is actually a very crucial resource that is in our life. Kenya has actually plenty of water, but always scarce to be utilized by people or accessed by people. Honorable Speaker, Kenya also has the highest number of institutions that manages water. We have almost 12 water works, 9 other regional developments, all and the companies on every county that manages water, but water is never available at a given time on demand. I think it's just purely on lack of management and lack of transparency. Honorable Speaker, the water companies in the counties are actually almost not functional, most of them, especially my county, Wajir Wasco is actually getting resources from World Bank, is getting money from the counties, but of course, the counties are not even, the water company is not even able to pay itself for some times now, and even up to 200 staff were laid off, and to date, they have not been paid their dues for almost 5 months they worked, and whatever, any other gratitude. However, until when they went, some of them went to court, and it's only this week some payment has been done. About 7 of them have been paid for 4 months, and the rest have not been paid. And that much the county is actually, the Wajir Wasco is actually in obsolete, I mean they're in need of money. Still the money is available from the World Bank. It is there, the council also supporting, but because it's not well managed, that resources are not well managed, and at the same time, one other thing is the county, I mean the company is actually experiencing issues to do with resource generation. Wajir doesn't have a pumped water source. There's no rivers, it's landlocked. It depends. It depends on boreholes, the groundwater. We have about 600, currently 600 boreholes. And these boreholes have been managed by communities in different parts of the county. Boreholes have been run by community committees. It has now become a cash cow for the communities. Instead of paying money now to the Wajir Wasco, the communities are not ready to give back the boreholes to be managed by the counties. Honorable Speaker, I think the most important thing now is that my committee, the Committee of Devolution now, water is actually a devolved function. But the problem is that of the 9 water agencies and many regional, I think there are about 4, like Victoria, Tana water, and the coast water, all these guys don't want to release these institutions back to the counties. I think the high time that this House must be able to support the counties so that at least these functions can go back to, be taken back to the counties. One other thing is, Honorable Speaker, most of these companies are non-entities actually. Most of them are not even registered. Some of them they don't have legal status, and they cannot be operating officially, legally. And the way it is being run, even appointments are done by the governors. The boards have been appointed by the governors, and actually most of these companies are supposed to be independent from the county management. So the county executive, but is still micromanaging it, and they do all the appointments, and therefore that is, I think, the causes as to why the companies are not functioning well. One other thing is, Honorable Speaker, the money been received from donors are not being actually audited. And I think that's why the CP guys need to go at least in depth companies, so at least we can be able to know how they manage their resources. Most of them don't even have their own generated own source funds. The money is not actually even accounted for. So it's the high time that, because the World Bank or the counties cannot be able to manage the water companies for the people of the respective counties. So we need these companies to be at least viable, be able to generate their own resources, so at least they can be able to sustain themselves. Otherwise, as it is, I think it will not go far, and most of them will be closed down. One other thing is actually legal status should be done. They should have, these companies must be registered and must have shareholders, so at least they will be able to generate their own funds. Because a limited company cannot be having its own, be depending on resources from the counties and the World Bank and all these other NGOs and other donors. One other thing, Honorable Speaker, I think there's also duplication of works. The company is working there. The company is supposed to take over water resources and water management. We have also the Department of Water in the same counties who are also equally doing the same businesses. So I think we need to have, to divide the responsibility for these two institutions, and then these other companies, these other regional water works and water agencies should be revolved eventually. And this is actually what we are now doing. We are meeting with all the stakeholders, I think in the course of the next month, so that we will be able to devolve these functions back to the counties. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you and I want to support this motion and particularly applaud the leadership of this committee, Honorable Speaker. This committee is led by the very able Deputy Party Leader of the ODM Party, Senator Geoffrey Atieno Ososi, who has a future also elsewhere out of this Senate, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, water is life. In the SDG 6 talks about clean water and sanitation, Honorable Speaker. And we all know the relationship of clean water to health. We know the relationship of water to food. We all know the real critical space that the availability of water played in this country when we had the disastrous COVID, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, water remains a basic needs of all of us. And that is why the provision of water is so critical to this nation, Honorable Speaker. There is the 9 reports of water companies of Busia, Elgeyo Marakwet, Kirinyaga, Kilifi, Mandera, Migori, Mombasa, Laikipia, and Tharaka Nithi, Honorable Speaker. But the obstacles that we continue to meet in this sector remains uniform in all the counties, Honorable Speaker. In the report, Honorable Speaker, the committee makes reference to aging infrastructure. Honorable Speaker, I was lucky to have served as a CEM of water for some 6 months in Homa Bay County during some transition as we are going for the 2017 election in Homa Bay County. I was then the CEC of lands, but I had the privilege to serve as CEC of water for some 6 months. And Honorable Speaker, all the challenges that this committee talks about are challenges that I encountered when I had that short stint as the water CEC. Honorable Speaker, the infrastructure that our counties have, especially in the municipalities, in the county headquarters of the county, remain the same infrastructure that has been there for all the time that those towns have been there. In particular, in Homa Bay Town and Homa Bay Municipality, we have an aging infrastructure. Despite the growth that has been there, then it means, Honorable Speaker, that this infrastructure cannot consistently and sufficiently serve this growing population in the town. So as much as the Lake Victoria South Water Board has dealt with, through development partners, has dealt with the availability, the supply of water. Honorable Speaker, if the counties or the companies do not get funds to deal with the distribution lines, with expanse distribution lines that can serve this population, then the issue of access to water by our people remains a pipe dream. And that is often why this water system breaks down. Because if it's going to be pushed to pump water to all the areas of the towns or the catchment areas, the infrastructure that is available is not able to do so. So, Honorable Speaker, the county governments or the boards and all the funders or the development partners must, as a priority, deal with the rehabilitation of the distribution lines of our water system. Honorable Speaker, along the aging infrastructure, we also have corrupt practices within these jurisdictions. Honorable Speaker, there's the mention of illegal connections. And Honorable Speaker, when you reflect at all our urban centers, you often see the thriving business of water tankers. It is right to believe, Honorable Speaker, that most of the people dealing with the water tankers or the water boosters are also people within the water sector. And Honorable Speaker, then it means that they are able to cause inadequacies in the provisions of water so that they are able to make their businesses thrive, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, water remains a basic need. And as a country and as the world as enshrined in SDG 7, everybody should be able to access water as a basic need. Honorable Speaker, the report also mentions the high operating costs, and Honorable Speaker, this is a setback to the realization of a water supply in most of our companies. Honorable Speaker, most of the companies and the municipalities as we have still rely on electricity as a source of power. And a number of the companies are not able to pay their electricity bills. And so you have a lot of interruptions in the provisions of water in our municipality. Honorable Speaker, there's also a mention of governance. Honorable Speaker, in most of the companies, this is a menace that in providing water, this system, these provisions must be managed by competent people that are appointed, Honorable Speaker. We urge our governors that oversee these companies that go ahead and appoint people who can actually manage these water companies. The water companies must not only be limited to employment bureaus in our municipality. Honorable Speaker, I must also mention that our county bosses or the managers of the counties must also work on physical planning of the towns, because the physical plans enable the water system to be realigned to the urban centers. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, I also want to mention that water provision must not only be limited to the urban space, that everybody in this republic deserve the provision of water. So our counties, as they focus on water provision in urban centers, we must also enhance access to water in our rural areas. Honorable Speaker, in my own sub-county headquarters, that is Ndewa Town, as we talk, we have no water. And yet, the Lake Victoria South Water Services had invested in a borehole in Ndewa Town that is capable of serving the whole town and the environs, that is not limited to 1 or 2 wards in that sub-county. But what is happening, Honorable Speaker? The borehole is available, water is available, but distribution, all the lines are destroyed, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I've raised this with the Water Ministry and the Water Secretary, but all have been told is that the county government of Homa Bay should look at the rehabilitation of this distribution line. And I call upon our county government of Homa Bay, look at the rehabilitation of the distribution line of the main water supply of Ndewa Town so that the people of Ndewa can be served. Honorable Speaker, we know that water plays a role. Water is related to health, as I've said, to food, and even to security. Honorable Speaker, in this country, we've had situations where we have floods when there rains. And yet we see that our government is not able to harvest this water in time so that it can solve the scarcity of water at times of drought. So rightly, we walk from drought, and then we run into drought. And we see how drought is related to lack of food, and security. Honorable Speaker, I live and I support this motion. I want to urge Kenyans that Kenyans let us go for courses that will serve the water sector. The water sector is able to give a solution to the unemployment situation we have in this country. Honorable Speaker, this country will lack adequate plumbers, we lack adequate water engineers, and this can be solved by our people, our Form 4s that leave school, going for artisan courses, going to the Kewi school. The Kewi school is sufficient enough to train skilled manpower for this sector. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Thank you. Senator William Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also arise to support this motion and also admit that I'm also a member of this particular committee and thank the last Senate, 2017-2022, Honorable Speaker, because in its own wisdom, they saw the need to split the oversight committees into two. Otherwise, the special funds and the water companies, Honorable Speaker, would not have been audited by this particular House, Honorable Speaker. And I want to thank also my chair, who is the deputy party leader of ODM. I know is really leading the committee very well. And I have also told him 2027 is likely to come and face us, so he needs to do a good job. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as a committee, as we went through the reports, the audited reports, Honorable Speaker, generally, one of the issues that we noted was weak management structures in the water companies, governance issues, Honorable Speaker, especially most of the water service providers didn't have competent boards, and some of them, if they had boards, Honorable Speaker, they thought they were independent from the county governments. They didn't say, they thought they don't have to report to the governor, to the CEC Water and CEC Finance, Honorable Speaker, but at least our committee has been able to bring things to order, and now generally most of the companies are run well, and we believe in the next audits, especially 2024-25 going forward, Honorable Speaker, some of these books will have unqualified accounts, Honorable Speaker, because all of them were either qualified, disclaimer, accounts, Honorable Speaker. So we've done a good job, and I believe soon they are going to see, we'll see the benefits of this particular committee in this particular water service providers, Honorable Speaker. What we want to urge our governors is to ensure they employ competent CEOs, competent board members, so that they can drive the companies well, Honorable Speaker, because those are the issues, the weaknesses that we saw. And basically, you had Senator for Wajir, Honorable Speaker, that some of the boreholes within the communities, they are run by an association, and the associations have even refused to cede management of these boreholes to the water companies. So basically, they are run as a club, and they don't pay. They just maybe charge a flat rate from the water users, and sometimes the water is not even enough, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, what we also saw as a big, serious issue is what we call non-revenue water, Honorable Speaker. You know, the standard loss is about 25%, but majority of the water service providers were way above, some even up to 72%. I think it is only one or two counties, Nyeri, and I think one more, were below the recommended loss of 25%, Honorable Speaker. But the other 70, 60, so basically it means you're losing more than half, more than 3/4 of what the water that goes to the pipes, Honorable Speaker. And there are two types of loss. There is a physical loss, basically because of the state of the pipes, and there is the commercial loss. The commercial loss, Honorable Speaker, is the water is already in the pipe, There are no losses through the pipes, but basically they don't peel the water that has been used by the users, or cartels divert the water, they cut the water and sell directly to the water users. It's like what the Senator for Nairobi had said, Honorable Speaker. Generally, Nairobi Water Company should not be getting any support from Nairobi County government. It should be getting support, it should be self-sufficient, because we need water. You go to Karen, Honorable Speaker, almost every day, pipes are passed everywhere. They don't have any means to detect if there are any leakages within the pipeline, Honorable Speaker. So governors have shouldered. If county governments were not the Honorable Speaker, most of these water service providers basically would have closed, because they all get support from the counties in terms of to ensure they are able to pay salaries, they are able to pay electricity bills. Otherwise, Kenya Power would have basically closed most of them long time ago, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it's also important that we encourage them to get smart meters. They need to get detectors so that if there are leakages, they are detected quickly, Honorable Speaker. Recently, I think they partnered also with National Police Service, where we have what we call water policing. The water police officers are supposed to help and assist the water service providers to detect where there are illegal connections so that they don't lose water, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, is in terms of water, in terms of the regional bodies, we have 9 of them. But imagine, Honorable Speaker, some of these water regional agencies take loans on behalf of water service providers, and the water service providers don't know. They just find themselves, there's a loan here, they were not involved, they didn't negotiate. A visibility study of the water projects were not done through them, so they just see loans and people are coming to the regions that there is a project that is coming up. Honorable Speaker, I know most of my colleagues also want to contribute. I just wanted to put the last comment. The last comment is there is an issue in terms of property. There are some plans, vehicles, equipment, and even the land where some of the water service providers are domiciled, Honorable Speaker, and they don't have the titles. They don't have logbooks for the vehicles, Honorable Speaker. They are still within the regional bodies. And we have given intergovernmental agency, we have given the counties, the governors, and regional bodies, Honorable Speaker, to ensure within a certain period of time, the assets that belong to the water service providers should be handed over to them so that it improves their balance sheet, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I know in areas like Elgeyo-Marakwet County, it's a young county. Basically, we have a few small water service providers, and they are still struggling. I believe the agencies within that region and the county government will assist them. What will help mostly, Honorable Speaker, along Keria Valley, we have conflict as communities because of water. I believe if water is managed very well, basically even inter-clan or inter-community conflict because of pasture, because of water, will be reduced if, Honorable Speaker, our governors sit down and they ensure our people get clean water across the counties. Honorable Speaker, I don't want to say much so that I cede time to my colleagues. I support and I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hamida Kibwana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion, and I commend my very able chairman, our deputy party leader, ODM, for the good work that he has been doing so far. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to note for very few minutes just the cross-cutting points. The cross-cutting, actually, I was looking at the audit report, which was considered by the team. The companies, the water companies, Mr. Speaker, have taken loans some of them due to develop infrastructure for big dams, but they end up not being able to do it. The big dams that, the funding was, they got the funds for the big dams, but then they did not consult actually the counties. So you may find that they expect the counties to pay for the services, but then the issue also is the last mile connectivity that has not been developed actually when doing a large dam. Now, a large dam without last mile connectivity, Mr. Speaker, does not work, I think, very well. And then the counties are expected to pay off. Mr. Speaker, when assets are developed with the water companies, they retain the assets, but do not transfer liabilities, but transfer liabilities to the county. So you find counties are overwhelmed with monies, or fundings to be paid, and yet this is a challenge for financial statement to the water companies, to counties. Mr. Speaker, also I remember the Auditor General was able to see the liabilities but no corresponding assets to the water companies. Mr. Speaker, this becomes a big issue and a problem to the water companies to give a fair, correct view of the financial position. Each time we are always, we are always having issues with the water companies that they cannot account for the financial position. And to some extent, it's an indication that the national government is not ready, Mr. Speaker, to take care of those functions. The other challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that the counties do not have the co-ownership, actually, arrangements between the water companies, the water companies and the national, at the national level and the county level. That one is also an issue. Mr. Speaker, the non-revenue has also been mentioned, the non-revenue water. It is, Mr. Speaker, a thorn in the flesh. They blame the old piping system, breakages, illegal connections, many other issues. But I think water companies need to invest on this one. And they do need to invest in new technologies to detect leakages, like the upgrading the pipes and also the smart meters, Mr. Speaker. We need to embrace the smart meters to tackle the commercial losses through the interfering of the meters. We always have people reconnecting and doing all sorts of issues. And that's why actually the counties go at a loss. There's some counties, Mr. Speaker, I related, they have multiple water companies. For example, Machakos have 6 or 7 companies, water companies. Kiambu, you recall, it has about 8 water companies. That is a challenge, Mr. Speaker, because most of the water companies are not economical viable. One last thing, Mr. Speaker, is oversighting and management is quite difficult on this one. The recommendation is to bring down the water companies to a number that is easy to manage, Mr. Speaker. One, but not the least, Mr. Speaker, is, I remember the areas of shortness of water supply. You find like Gusii are sharing, Gusii and Nyamira are sharing, that they are co-owning within the county. So you have the shortness of water, adequate supply, inadequate supply of water. Then other places you find adequate supply but no infrastructure in the water system. Replacements of the pipes, Mr. Speaker, put the companies in a very awkward position. Now, my last kick, Mr. Speaker, is that the committee, I remember, recommended that to decluster such arrangements so that each county to have its own service provider. Mr. Speaker, I know someone else needs to speak, so I want to yield my time for him. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Hilary Sigei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to appreciate Senator Hamida for according me the remaining 10 minutes or so of the session, Mr. Speaker, so that I also comment on the motion. And I want to also appreciate the chairperson of this committee, the Honorable Senator Osotsi, for a job well done. The reports which we've gone through for the period 2019, 2020, and 2021, Mr. Speaker, where, as I listened to him tabling the report, they had to deal with over 89 water companies across the various counties that they had to subject it to the level that they had the report. I want to appreciate the chairperson for leading the team and for the recommendations that they have given to this House towards the management of this water resource. Mr. Speaker, it said that one can live without love, but one cannot without water. And you only can appreciate and understand the value of water when the taps are dry. This report, Mr. Speaker, has highlighted several shortcomings in the management of various water companies and also the consequences of such lapses. Where we have got in the reports, Mr. Speaker, Amatsi, Kisumu, Kwale, Nyeri, Gusii, Bomet, and in all these reports, they have identified a common thread of the challenges that some of these companies have in their management. And I will highlight a few, Mr. Speaker, particularly which have zeroed in towards the consequences of poor management of water companies. In terms of the aspects that they have identified, for instance, in areas where we have got unsupported property in terms of land, in terms of equipment, in terms of unreported or unregistered ownership to the properties leads to poor management style and designs. And in terms of reporting, most of these companies have indicated the fact that resources in terms of funds allocated always are lost, especially where management and governance of these companies limits the reporting and loss of funds to sometimes acquisition of those particular properties. Number two, Mr. Speaker, in the aspect of some of these companies in their previous management or governance, particularly in one in the audit report of 2019, which the Honorable Chairman ran us through, companies that had previously borrowed loans for purposes of running the affairs of their water companies, and in the course of transition have failed to be properly audited and disclosed, have led to areas of pilferages of public resources. And in terms of the recommendations that they have made, if only most of these companies in their respective counties comply with implementation of those recommendations, we will end up getting the appropriate management style that will lead to support of the companies and also service provision to the public. Mr. Speaker, particular interest which I've picked from the report of the year 2019, 2020, and 2021 are continuous unresolved queries which have been raised. You find, Mr. Speaker, that in the year 2019, a concern has been raised with regard to, for example, inherited loans or inherited unremitted funds which have been deducted from employees for purposes of remitting as statutory deductions. That has gone from 2019, 2020, and 2021 as per this particular report. For instance, in the county of Bomet, the unremitted deductions for the period 2019 to the staff pension lab trust fund was at 12 million in 2019, 19 million in 2020, and 30 million in 2021. That tells you, Mr. Speaker, that despite the recommendations that have come from the Auditor General in directing the management of such companies, the county governments, because of their poor governance structure, have failed to commit to such recommendations, and the consequences of which is continued ballooning of those unremitted and collected deductions from the management of the staff salaries. Another very important and key note that we've picked from this report, Mr. Speaker, is non-revenue water. You notice that out of all these reports, the rate at which the companies have lost on this non-revenue water is because of either unmetering of the water or even an intentional decision that the management of those companies take to get an avenue for corruption. Mr. Speaker, the regulations allows up to 25% losses. In these reports, Mr. Speaker, for the 3 financial years, I have noticed that in Bomet County, for instance, in 2019, the losses where we produce over 4.6 million cubic meters, we can only account for 2.1 million cubic meters. We have a loss of 53%.
Senator Sigay, when we resume this debate, you will have a remaining time of 14 minutes. Honorable Senators, it is now 1 p.m. Time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until later today, Wednesday, 23rd October 2024 at 2:30 p.m.
Panadol Extra Soluble dissolves twice as fast versus standard paracetamol tablets.